And what you see here is that the inflammation in the body then activates inflammation in the brain, right? But the inflammation in the brain then activates inflammation in the body. That's what they call co-activation. It's a feedback loop. The inflammation in the body is going to change the gut environment, and so we get what we call dysbiosis or overgrowth of bacteria. Okay, which what does what? It creates more inflammation. So here's your gut imbalance or inflammation in the gut, leading to inflammation in the brain. And the overall inflammation drives the stress chemistry of it all, and the stress chemistry co-activates. So this is a co-activation. One thing is feeding each other, on and off it goes. And it can lead to the activation of autoimmunity. Okay, what I want you to pay attention to here is the blue ball, the blue graphs here, and this is your immune system. So as complex as it is, right, you have what we refer to as your innate immune system. Your innate immune system is basically what you're born with. That's what you come into the world with, right? Your innate system has different cells, but they're the first ones that come into the scene. The main ones being macrophages. We look at a blood test, you often see something called a monocyte that's measured. A monocyte is an immature macrophage, but the monocytes become the macrophage. That's part of your innate system. So when those are elevated, you know the immune system is trying to deal with something. That's your innate immune system. Then you have your what we call acquired or adaptive immune system, right? Which we acquired as we move along. If we see we get infected with things and we get an infection, we get through it, we're acquiring our adaptive immune system. Now that adaptive immune system has a lot of moving parts to it, and they're known as helper cells. So you have what's called the Th1 division, or T helper 1. You have a T helper 2 division, T helper 17 division, and there's like, three, four other ones. But these are the main players. So the Th1 and Th2 system are important. The Th1 system, helper system, has different types of chemical compounds or immune chemicals called like cytotoxic cells and natural killer cells. So they do what they sound like, right? The responsibility of the Th1 system is surveillance and is to control bacteria and viruses, right? And to eradicate the overgrowth of bacteria in your gut. That's what they're doing. The Th2 system, right, is really the promoter of inflammation. This is the system that drives and produces antibodies. Okay, so we need them both, and this also produces mucus. Um, but we want them both like a seesaw act working in concert and being imbalanced, right? But the mechanisms of this inflammatory cascade and the stress responses from all the things I just showed you, right? If you follow the arrows here, what you see is that when you have this stress profile, this inflammation, you're going to suppress your innate immune system. Not good, right? Right? You suppress the Th1 system. So the very nature of stress chemistry and inflammation in the body systemically is going to suppress your Th1. When you suppress your Th1, you're going to promote, okay, an increase in Th2. That's just the mechanism. So I would say that over 90% of the people that I see that reach out to me for some looking for some degree of help, with their health challenges, they're in a Th2 dominance. They're in a pro-inflammatory state. And so what happens here is that you can see is that when you're in a Th2 dominance, right, you're going to that's going to suppress the Th1 system. The suppression of the Th1 system also suppresses your innate system, making you much more vulnerable for what? For infections, right? So if you have latent viruses like Epstein-Barr viruses, you have herpes viruses, cytomegaloviruses. Latent just means it lays dormant in the body. The majority of people have these viruses in them. They're passed down from generation to generation, right? But when you have a suppression of your Th1 and then suppression of your innate system driven by this profile, is these viruses can rear their heads. And then now we're off to the races with the infection, and the infection is going to drive more inflammation, and the inflammation is going to cause more suppression of Th1. And that now you're caught in these vicious circles, these vicious feedback loops, right? The suppression of the Th1 is also, okay, and the promotion of Th2 dominance is going to drive what? Dysbiosis. What does that mean? It means you lose the control of the ecosystem of your gut, and it promotes the overgrowth of bad bacteria, the overgrowth of yeast and fungi, and even parasites. So now you have an inflamed bowel from infections in your bowel, right? So all these things are feedback loops that are going on, and this co-activates the inflammation and back to the brain. right? Also, when you look at autoimmunity, whether it's Hashimoto's thyroid or rheumatoid or multiple sclerosis, any autoimmune condition, right, it's going to be more aggressively promoted when you have the suppression of Th1 that pushes more Th2 because the chemicals that are produced by Th2 turn on Th17. So the suppression of Th1 and the increase in Th2 is going to increase more Th17 reaction, and the Th17 reaction drives tissue destruction and autoimmunity. Right? This is why, if you even take it now into the coronavirus or the COVID infections, and what you're seeing is that when people get the infection, even though they may not have had a serious symptomatology, but past COVID, they're getting all these ongoing complications, right? Because what's happening is that the promotion of inflammation triggered by the coronavirus, uh, which which may have also been precipitated by other cofactors already, is now driving this suppression of Th1, increase in Th2. The person can't come down to Th2. They're upregulating the Th17. And now, post-COVID, they're turning on autoimmunity. And that's what we're seeing post-COVID is we're seeing an explosion of autoimmunity that was triggered by the COVID uh, um, infectional response. Okay. One more diagram, but again, this is to show you some feedback loops here, okay? And what we're going to talk here more about is histamine's relationship to brain, right? So here we're showing you about inflammation of the brain. So we have symptoms, right? Brain fog. And what is brain fog really, right? So it's a term, it's not really a clinical diagnosis, but we use it as a term because that's how people express it. My brain feels foggy. And what does that mean? Clarity, it's not feeling clear, it's not feeling sharp. That's really an indication of lack of speed, which is really a fatigue problem. So a fatigue problem of the brain is going to be expressed as brain fog because the connections are too slow. Okay. And certainly anxiety and depression. Yes, these are clinical diagnoses, but they are indications of inflammation of the brain. And then you also have more progressive changes into the disease states, whether they be ADD, for example, ADHDs, or behavioral problems, mood changes, but your diagnosis is dementia, cognitive declines, Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, frontal lobe dementias, all these diagnoses of progressive neurodegenerative diseases, all driven by inflammation. So it would make sense really that the cornerstone to this is like how do we reduce this, and but as you can see there's a lot of mechanisms at play here. So this is why it is unfortunate. I know people want quick answers, quick responses, but all too often when I meet with people is, they are looking for, they're searching the internet, they're Googling and trying to find, the magic potion, the magic supplement that's going to rock their world and make them feel better. Or they're looking to find that one diet or that one food they can eliminate to rock their world. And it's just not the reality because these are feedback loops. And so all of these things need to be addressed, okay, systematically. Right? And that's what my job is to do, is to figure out these things, help to prioritize things, and get you going in the right direction.